Good morning, everyone. Hey, it is Wednesday. We're doing something fun today. Well, sort of fun. Mildly depressing, I guess, but fun, right? I don't want to poison the well or anything, but this is not going to go well. This is going to be a very, very bad hangout, just FYI for people. But just to introduce a couple people real quick, we have Geostreber in here all the way from Germany, who actually hasn't gone to bed yet. I guess he's staying up for this. And we got the ever lovely and erudite Dr. Misha Griffith, one of our favorite all-time guests on the Non Sequitur Show.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And
good evening, Steve.
Guess what both of these people did? They've read Anthony Riley's Thesis. Yes, and they've actually put notes and stuff. But I got to blow this up real quick so I can read what's going on in the chat. First of all, can you guys hear us? Everybody good to go? Make sure the audio is okay before I continue. We're going to get hammered. No, I'm just drinking tea.
I thought we were going to be doing the hammering.
Yeah, well, that's going to be kind of the goal. But I think he kind of, from what I've actually seen so far, he's kind of hammered himself. So how about, Gio, why don't you kind of give us the backstory on what he wrote this for? What's the overall thing he was going for? And then we're just going to dive into it because this is bad.
Okay, so a little bit of backstory here. About a year ago, Riley actually ran a fundraiser on, I think, Indiegogo it was.
GoFundMe.
Or GoFundMe.
It was a GoFundMe,
whatever,
yeah.
Where he announced that he would write a master thesis for a English-British university with the goal of, quote, slipping flat Earth into the education system. And for that, he actually collected £2,500 approximately, because the university fees in Great Britain are actually quite high. And today we're going to take a look at the result.
And just so people know, I don't want to give too much information about you specifically, but you're at a very high academic level to be able to actually review these papers. You've actually written master level theses, correct?
Yes, I've actually submitted my master's thesis in chemistry about half a year ago, and I graduated with the best grade possible at my local university.
So he knows what he's doing.
Excellent.
And we also have Dr. Griffith, who a real PhD, so she kind of knows what she's doing because, well, she teaches stuff.
Just in case we have any flat earthers out there that want to question some credentials, this is my master's thesis. This is my doctoral dissertation. They're thick.
And I'm gonna throw this out there. 3 people read your PhD thesis.
At least 3.
At least 3. Okay.
My mom never did, but I didn't finish it by the time she passed away. Oh, and by the way, another credential that I have, 6 years of teaching undergraduate history. I have graded thousands of freshman essays, and I've never graded anything as bad as this.
Can we see the pen? Do you have the pen? I want to see the pen if you have the pen.
My pen, yes.
Oh!
I believe you that you've never graduated something as bad as this, because that person, whoever would submit something like this, just wouldn't get graduated.
I tell you what, once we maybe get the Non Sequitur Show channel back, maybe we can kind of bribe Dr. Griffith into giving up that pen for charity.
Yeah. You know? Oh, the whole graded. You can have the whole graded.
Oh, check it out.
Yeah, sure. If you want to raffle it off, that would.
Yeah, we'll figure out something. You actually printed it out. You actually printed it out and did the whole. I'm much more comfortable doing it this way. Every single margin almost is completely covered in notes about how to make it stronger. All right, I don't even know where to start with this. I know, Gio, you have notes, and Dr. Griffith, you have notes. How about I just put it on stream and we just dive into it? And by the way, Gio, the thumbnail that I initially have used for this video, which I probably will change later on, I don't know. I just found out that wasn't even in his paper.
Yes. So here's a little bit about the paper. It actually doesn't contain a title page. One thing that I've done out of boredom, I guess, for the last few days was to actually rewrite his thesis to make it somewhat presentable, because I'm actually curious to how he would react when I actually send it back to him in a way that's much more professional looking, and the phrasing is better and everything than what he managed to write up and send up to his university.
That's very nice of you.
Actually, legally, when I turned in my master's thesis, there are 5 pages that should go before his first page of text. He should have a title page, he should have a table of contents, he should have a signing page so that his committee can sign off on it. He should have a letter of transferal, which transfers the right to the university so that they can publish it and then keep copies of it for other people to research. And he should have an acknowledgments page. If someone had given me £2,500 to write my work, and no one ever gave me that kind of money to do it, I would sure as heck acknowledge them.
Right?
That is just bad scholarship.
Yeah, there's so many multiple things wrong from start to finish in this whole, I would call it, debacle, by the way. And by the way, thank you for the $2 super chat. Oddball for life, I think. I could barely read the super chats right now because the way I have this situated. So I'm trying. But thank you for that $2 super chat. Let me ask the audience, make sure they can actually read what's on the screen. I don't want to cover up too much because I want to be able to read the live chat and see Dr. Griffith. Geo doesn't matter because it's an icon, but I have it blown up about 120%. So hopefully they can read this along with us. Okay, looks good. Great, thank you. I might make it a little bit smaller just so I can read the chat a little bit better. But okay, so Geo, how about you start us off with this, and then we'll just kind of go page by page with your notes, and then Dr. Griffith's notes, maybe.
Okay, so I'll just read the first paragraph, if that's fine. Is the national curriculum really achieving its intended objectives, or is it actually being used to indoctrinate children through the back door with pseudoscience teachings that are not proven as true, yet treated as fact and contrary to the Education Act of 1996? This critical analysis of the education system attempts to point out how pseudoscience is being pushed as science and passively indoctrinating the adults of tomorrow unlawfully. The question is, how and why is the law being omitted/ignored, and why is the issue not being talked about? Okay,
let's just okay. Right off the bat,
I will give him credit. That's an okay thesis statement.
I take it as a whole, sure.
He's not beating around the bush. He's not being overdramatic. There's nothing melodramatic about this. Well, something melodramatic, but he does have a thesis statement, which hats off to him. It took me 3 years to craft my dissertation thesis statement. So yeah,
I would argue though, in a thesis statement, I wouldn't ever say something that are not proven is true, because we don't prove things. But sure, if it was a logic paper, but
no, there's a whole school of errors that he makes as far as terminology that. If we keep repeating the mistakes that he makes, we're going to be here all night.
Is that your mic scraping, by the way? Is that?
Oh,
yeah. If you just move it a little bit. Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I don't want to focus too much on the spelling errors because this thing is replete with that. I mean, they're just ubiquitous throughout all this. So I'm not really caring too much about the spelling errors. Although I find it odd that he used pseudoscience twice, and both time it's.
Right. Yes, and both are wrong.
Both times is not right.
Both are wrong.
It's supposed to be one long word instead of two, and instead of
I think that's kind of odd. But all right, anything else you want to say with this? Like I said, I'm not going to focus too much on the intended or commas or anything like that, unless Dr. Griffith, you want to.
Well, my point about the critical analysis of the education system. He's telling us in the first paragraph that he's going to analyze the education system. There is no analysis of the education system in this. He continuously just makes assumptions about what is being taught in the classroom, and they are absolutely ludicrous. It sounds like a Fox News commentator talking about kids these days.
Yeah, I don't think he knows what analysis entails.
Yeah, and so he's analyzing the law. He is not analyzing the education system.
It's actually getting worse in the second part, because the second part of the entire thesis is not about the education system whatsoever. It's about just it's just about random flat Earth ramblings that contain no arguments whatsoever, and just try to present flat Earth points, which are obviously presented in a false way, and second of all, debunked within a matter of seconds.
That was like the worst 6 pages of this whole thing.
All right, let's continue on. George in the live chat thinks it's going to be a treat reading this for me. And I'm like, I've read some of it, but I got to tell you, I just couldn't do a full reading. I was going to wait for today and just kind of go with it. I know it's pretty bad. Okay.
Oh, you have no idea, Steve. You have no clue.
All right, go ahead and continue on.
Should I, or do you want Misha?
Should I? I can.
Either or. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think paragraph is fair.
That's great.
Okay, that's good. Introduced in 1988, the national curriculum was formed by conservative Kenneth Baker, MP, with the intention of standardizing education so that all state-taught students were delivered the same education. All schools would have a predictable outcome, and then expectations would be assumed because of this standardized approach. Despite being portrayed as a slug on the satirical comedy Spitting Image, the consequence of this work is still practiced in schools in 2018, 30 years on, and Kenneth Baker is now a lord. This paper will question whether the national curriculum is being used as it was intended, or is it actually indoctrinating children passively by teaching pseudoscience as fact, and people are not aware of the issue of passive indoctrination. Where to begin?
Ponder that. Just take it in.
Okay, so one thing I do not understand is, why is he mentioning that Kenneth Baker is a conservative? What does it actually matter to the points that he's going to make later?
Exactly. Doesn't need to be it, and it should be conservative MP Kenneth Baker, not conservative Kenneth Baker MP. I thought about that one for a long time. And then talking about that the guy is portrayed as a slug in Spitting Image, which is a very funny show, but really, you're wasting space here.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird filler stuff, but okay.
Yeah.
Also, there are already citations missing, because if he's talking about this satirical show, he should at least cite it in one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This paragraph should have at least 3 citations. Don't call this a paper. It is a thesis and or a dissertation, whichever the correct terminology is. Indoctrinating children passively. With his entire assumption throughout the paper is that indoctrination is a very bad thing. Bad thing. It's not. I'm sorry. People are indoctrinated in all sorts of things, like which side of the road do you drive on?
Oh, I agree with that. Navy indoctrinates. There's no question about that. Military does indoctrination, and there's reasons for it.
Yes, there's absolute reasons for it, but he's treating indoctrination as a complete bad thing. If he really wanted to use the correct word, he wanted the word inculcation. That one is far more nefarious. Indoctrination is not the kind of word he wants. But he is also restating his thesis statement again. In almost every paragraph, he restates that is the national curriculum teaching our children the right thing, or are they being indoctrinated? Drives me crazy.
Gio?
There's actually not much I can add to that.
Okay. Next paragraph then?
Okay, I'll do it. As regards the law, government has an appointed Minister for Education. The role at the time of writing is the Secretary of State for Education, and is currently occupied by whatever RT means, Honorary Gavin Williamson MP. He only has 2 principal statutory duties found in Section 10 and 11 of the Education Act 1996. Section 10 is a very general promote the education of the people, and Section 11 is not any more narrow, promoting primary, secondary, and further education. The lack of any accountability will be addressed later in this document.
You know, it's weird. He throws in comments where they're not needed, and then he leaves out comments where they are. But I don't know what the hell he's even trying to say in this. So
where do we start? First of all, that picture. Why is that there? I think we lost Misha, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so for a second. Is that Gavin Williamson?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Why would you? I don't know why these pictures are in there.
I don't know either. Usually when you're talking about somebody, be it a politician or a scientist or whoever, just mention their names. That's enough. Nobody needs a picture of them.
Yeah, that's weird. Like a Getty image or something.
Oh, frick. Then the entire formulation of the sentence starting with Section 10. Section 10 is a very general promote the education of the people. I mean, seriously, why? Should have rephrased it like something of Section 10 very generally promotes the education of the people, or something to that amount.
Yeah, this is really kind of oddly worded to me, too.
Yes.
Yeah, what is the role at the time of writing? Which writing? This writing?
Yes, he's talking about this document.
Yeah, he's not making that very clear.
Hi, we got you back.
I'm back.
Did you hear what I was saying, or do I have to repeat it?
No, don't repeat it. Let's keep going on. Did you mention that you do not put photographs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously that's the first thing that you notice about this paragraph.
Yeah, I'm like just tripping on that. That there's a photograph from like some kind of Getty images or something of this guy in there. Like,
yeah.
Why?
No photographic acknowledges, no label, no anything. Yeah.
Yes, and if you decide to actually introduce a photograph of something, of a point you want to make a figure, it would need to have a subtitle, which this one doesn't have.
By the way, Gio, where would people want to get their hands on this document? If is it available somewhere?
You can just ask me, I think.
I'll throw it up on the webpage later or something. I'll give a link to it in the video description when this is uploaded, but I'll probably just upload it as a document to the Great Debate Community website if somebody wants it. Okay.
Okay, next paragraph?
Yeah, with regards
to the actual education being taught, in this context, the important law is found in Section 406 and Section 407, Education Act 1996. Section 406 provides the statutory duty of local authorities, boards of governors of schools, and head teachers personally to prohibit the promotion of partisan politics, but conversely, Section 407 requires the balanced presentation of opposing views. These two provisions will be critically analyzed to see if the national curriculum is actually a force for good, or has it gone too far and become a vehicle for indoctrination of our youth of today and actually teaching them stories rather than facts for life as an aware adult in a modern world. Truth, real world.
Truth, real world.
Okay, so those last two sentences, okay, those can just fuck off. Yeah. There's no reason whatsoever to include those two.
No. I just can't imagine these being a master level thesis. This is just mind-boggling to me so far.
I just noticed an inconsistency in his formatting, which I hadn't seen before. In this paragraph, he mentions the sections every time, while in the paragraph before that, he actually abbreviated it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't mind the abbreviation.
No, not the abbreviation, but he's mentioning that the SS dot before every number, which is something he did not do in the one before.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to
number two, these two the sentence, these two provisions will be critically analyzed to see if, no, you are doing research. You're not feeling around in the dark. You should be actively telling them what you are doing, or have done or will demonstrate, but just to see if. He's so colloquial in his use of language. It just is jaw-dropping.
That's a good point. Yeah, where you're writing a thesis to try to demonstrate something that you hold to be the case, right? Some hypothesis or something that you're advocating for. She's basically going, hey, let's do an analysis and see what we find.
Yeah, and this is the third time he has talked about his thesis statement about, is the national curriculum a force for good, or is it indoctrinating our students? He has, again, restated that a third time.
It's a lot of poisoning the well, though, because it's just throwing out there, just, hey, this is the case. I'm not going to actually ever demonstrate this, but we'll just keep saying it every paragraph.
Yeah. Did you notice how often he uses the word actual?
Actually, yeah.
It's everywhere. There's like at least 100 instances in this paper, if not more.
Wait till you see our caffeine corner on Monday. How many times this person used the word allegedly?
Oh God! No, it seriously drives me crazy. This is one of the first things that I would just delete when getting the chance of correcting this.
Okay, continue on.
It's my turn, isn't it?
Sure.
Yes. Or do you want to read, maybe, Steve?
I'll read.
Okay.
You want me to read? Sure. There are a few legal avenues open to the challenge the way the national curriculum is taught if it was felt to be allowing pseudoscience to be taught as real science. Judicial review is available, but it largely acts as a deterrent because of the cost associated with following it and due to the time it takes to conclude issues. It can be argued to be a control to slow all progress of issues right down to the point where that in itself acts to put off litigation. I'm going to try to parse this before I actually ask you about this. What is he going for with this?
Well, he's saying that people do not try to actually sue the state for not following their own laws because they are deterred by the possible legal costs.
So they need a judicial review to determine whether pseudoscience is being taught or not?
More or less, I guess.
Which is, I believe there should be reviews for that, but I don't know what he's advocating for here.
Well, he's advocating for such a very narrow reading, or misreading, as the case is, of this law in order to include what he wants included. He has truly started with his conclusion and is trying to work backwards to fit everything in. One of his writing bugaboos that bothers me, first sentence, challenge the way the national curriculum is taught, if it was felt. By whom? Be specific. The argument from some people say is a useless argument. It doesn't.
Those are actual weasel words. Some people say it's a weasel word.
Some people say it's a way to get a question in without actually doing the work of creating a question and doing the analysis of the question, or citing who actually asks that question.
I had a very hard time understanding this paragraph as the second sentence is just so damn long. Why didn't he tear it apart into two? There's this and in the middle, in the second line of the second sentence. That's the perfect position to actually start a new one.
See, I'm familiar. I do run-ons in my blog occasionally, but I'm not writing a thesis paper. I don't have somebody reviewing it. I just write it.
You will see that there are at least dozens of examples where a point that he's trying to get across is muddied in such a way that it's not understandable whatsoever because his grammar is just failing on him.
He's using the passive voice, and this really makes your sentences clumsy. He should be using active verbs rather than passive verbs.
Yeah, he's trying to argue for something. He's arguing a thesis.
Yeah. And number two, watch his pronouns. He uses pronouns as a shorthand so that he doesn't have to type names out. And so he's using pronouns referring back to things that were in sentences previous or in previous parts of the sentences, so they are not actually highlighting what they should be highlighting. It's very confusing, and the point of writing a thesis like that is to write with complete clarity so that the readers, like the three of us and our live chat, so that we don't have to try to figure out what is he saying in this paragraph. Yeah, it should be abundantly clear.
When you write like that and you use pronouns or use something else that refers back to something at the beginning, I've seen a lot of times it leads to amphibole, where you can have something be read multiple different ways and you don't know what the way the person is actually trying to state it because it's very imprecise.
Okay, I'll go on. The tort of negligence is worth considering, as there can be no doubt that the profession of teaching owes its students a duty of care. Furthermore, the duty is fiduciary?
Fiduciary, I guess.
Fiduciary.
In that it is so imbalanced against fiduciary duty. In that it is so imbalanced against the children that the highest duty exists. The issue with negligence is that you have to show a fiscal loss. How on earth might you quantify a fiscal loss if you were able to argue successfully that there was a breach of duty? A possible breach of duty here is not likely to prove a loss, as the loss would almost certainly be deemed too remote on a case-by-case basis. But perhaps there could be a difference if a class action of a generation ever tested a point if it was argued that they were taught falsehoods.
Oh,
I think that's a special legal word, falsehoods.
Falsehoods and fiduciary duties. So he's basically, on this one, I guess I could try to parse it. He's trying to say that because he thinks that students were taught misinformation and things that are a falsehood, like, round earth, that they should be able to sue because of some kind of breach of duty on behalf of their instructors in the educational system under the tort of negligence.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just wildly stupid, by the way, but okay.
So in terms of styling, is it actually valid in law to use a sentence like the question in the middle? How on earth would you quantify fiscal loss if you were able to argue, etc.? Is it valid to directly speak to the reader in this way?
Absolutely. I put the kibosh on my students when they use that second person pronoun in a sentence like this, because what it does is break the fourth wall. It takes the reader out of reading the sentence as an object on the paper, and it turns them inwards and starts them thinking, oh, do I do that? And now you've just lost your reader. They're gone.
It's not valid to do this.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Okay, because I got that the wrong way. I think you formulated your sentence in the wrong way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know what she was trying to say. The pronoun "you" here. Why would? Yeah, I mean, I would understand if he was writing a persuasive paper, right? That would be fine. I would. You definitely want to include your reader if you want to do a persuasive argument, but this is not a persuasive paper. This is a thesis trying to defend something that he holds to be the case, and try to argue for it, advocate for it. But now he's arguing something along the lines of, hey, did you have a bad education? If so, why didn't you think about doing a class action suit? That's what I'm getting out of this. This is like some kind of indirect call out to people saying, hey, did you think you had a shitty education and you were taught round earth, you should sue?
Well, I think he is considering himself as setting the groundwork to start this class action lawsuit.
Yeah. All right, who's next?
I think it's me. There may also be other avenues to open to possible litigants, but the main purpose of this paper is to identify an issue that is simply unknown and unaware at the time of writing. Are children being indoctrinated by the very system that is meant to teach them? Again, he's doing it again. Why is he reformulating his thesis outline again for the fourth time, I think, in this paper? We're only on page 2. Yeah, we're only in page 2. Remember, there are 40 or so in total.
Good luck getting through all that.
No chance.
Yeah. He's got the main purpose of this paper, no, it's a dissertation, is to identify an issue that is simply unknown and unaware. Issues cannot be aware. People are aware of issues.
What, they're not sentient? You're saying they're issues don't... Sentient. Really?
Okay. No.
News to me. Okay. And forgetting another comma there, but... okay, so who's next?
You know what? I'm just going to do the next one because that last one was very short.
Go for it.
Okay.
For the purpose of this paper, the standard of evidence considered is whether or not the evidence is science or pseudoscience, and if it is not science, how and why it is even being taught at all, or at least taught with reference to opposing views, evidence, or models that do not agree with that which is being taught.
Can you pick one way to do pseudoscience and kind of stick with it? And by the way, ellipsis is 3, not 4. I use ellipses all the time because that's my writing style that I'm kind of known for because that's how I parse my speech. So I do use ellipses, but
ellipses are used to. They're not a pause. They're not a verbal pause. A double dash would fit better as that, or a comma. To use ellipses in this fashion means that you have edited something out or something is missing. So I would like to know what is missing in that.
Yeah, I would read
section.
that way too. Like something was actually, usually when you use ellipses like this type of usage is you're saying a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to skip a whole bunch of stuff and then continue on.
It's basically the way this is done would usually be used in a quotation, in a citation of a different work. Because there were 2 different points that needed to be addressed that are not at the same position in the original text. And the middle part is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll just read the next. Some understanding of physics, laws of nature, scientific method, and Newton's laws of motion is needed, not forgetting evidence in the context of verification, reliability, and credibility, evidence in law, to appreciate the points raised in this paper.
Why is this underlined again?
It's underlined, and what's the little comment thing over here? Is that that's your note? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Why is it underlined? I don't. Is there a reason for
that? I don't know if it's a British thing, but I know in American English, when a word is possessive, you put an S at the end of the word and you put an apostrophe before the S.
Talk about Newtons?
Yes.
Steve, do me a favor and hover your mouse over Newtons, please. Okay. I think it's not recognizing it, but I was saying the same thing.
Yeah, it's not. It's not recognizes the symbol.
Yes, this is simply grammatically wrong. The way he's writing it.
Yeah.
It's just false. Full stop.
There's certainly multiple possessive forms that he's got in the paper that should have apostrophes and simply do not, and that is absolutely insane.
Yes, there's one particular example later where he's talking about, for example, the Earth's rotation.
Yes.
The word Earth's does not contain an apostrophe whenever he's writing it. Not a single time I've spotted it.
But this definitely should, because its laws of motion are attributed to Newton. Mm-hmm. So it's Newton apostrophe S, because he's I use it as ownership is what I
yes, they're not multiple Newtons.
Yeah,
yeah,
because this should be more than one Newton. This would be like how many Newtons, like a force,
6. There's 6
Newtons. There's 600 Newtons in the. By the way, got a couple super chats. The ex-Hindu atheist, $2 New Zealand. No citations, blasphemy. And Caleb Dark, I think it's pronounced it right. £5. Persuasive toilet paper, but I would not even wipe my ass on this dissertation, quote unquote. Yeah, thank you. We don't need to read that part.
He goes on to cite the parts of the 2 educational acts. It needs a citation. There is something called the Oscula 4th edition that shows the proper way to cite these, and he, of course, does not do that.
He just basically screenshot the entire thing and just copy pastes it in here.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, I took a whole course in English on MLA formatting.
Yes.
I got an A in it. I hated it because it was just rote memorization. But we had to learn literally for months how to do proper MLA format. I know other people do APA in the Chicago style. But even though I don't use it, I had to learn it. Because if you ever did write a thesis or a paper, that's the style you use. Or you can use APA, I guess. But you have to learn some style.
If you're writing a science paper, it's APA.
Yeah.
If you're writing a history paper, it's generally Chicago or Turabian. MLA is modern language. So for working in a literary field, I use it in my class because some historians do use it. I use it in my class because I have literally students typing papers on their phones. And if you're asking for footnotes and subscripts and superscripts and anything fancy like that, that doesn't transfer over correctly. It's just like when you hover over one of Geo's notes and it shows the wrong sign. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when you're typing on your phone and you're then submitting it to like Blackboard or Canvas. So I have my students use MLA, if only because there's no question about it. There's an in-text citation that's in parentheses, and then at the end of the paper comes all your work cited. You don't have to fool around with footnotes.
Yeah, well, the point being,
in this case, it's probably because I'm using Adobe Reader and the German version, obviously, so I guess there's some translation error there.
Yeah, but either way, he used no formatting. Red's instance 5 Australian. A thesis written by a flat earther has many mistakes. Shock, gasp, say ain't so. It is so. I know, it's hard to believe. We're all really in shock over this.
Also, it's just bad practice to copy-paste them in here this way. In regards of how a thesis would look like if it was printed. You want the printing quality actually to be quite good as well, which is not something you can achieve this way.
I'm surprised he didn't do this in Comic Sans, to be honest with you. But okay.
Oh, that would be great.
That should be what it should be. Comic Sans. That would be hilarious.
I found some more errors. Okay, I'll start reading again. S406 expressly states that the promotion of partisan politics must be forbidden by the local authority, governing body, and head teachers personally. This is the focus in the context of the current teachings of the Copernican model commonly described as heliocentricity. Helio being of the sun and centric being in the middle. 406 deems that a balanced presentation of opposing views must be offered where political issues are brought to the attention of the pupils.
Remember, people, this is a master's level thesis here. And by the way, you didn't highlight this, but I will capitalize things in
capitalize. I know. I just saw that.
I'll do it in Twitter. Don't be wrong, because that's how I emphasize things or emphasize things with, or I'll use asterisks. But that's how my style, right? I'm not shouting. People think I'm shouting when I capitalize. I'm not. It's for emphasis. But you wouldn't do this in a thesis paper, I don't imagine.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Even though you want your language to be as precise as possible, you also want it to be as emotionless as possible.
And I would, it depends on the thesis, I would guess. So, like Dr. Griffith, if I was writing a certain type of thesis, but I wanted to emphasize something, I would italicize it.
Yes, you can do that, but it should be used sparingly. Right. You would never capitalize all the letters, and you would never underline things. Underline these punctuation marks actually mean something. And they are necessary for certain people to understand what you're writing. And if you don't get it, it's
I would generally, like I said, I've never written one, but I would generally think that if I would use italics, it would more be in the case if I'm using a word not as the word itself, or in the case of a modality, things like possibility, necessary. When you're writing a logic type stuff, those things were often italicized because they're modals.
Steve, I'm going to go off camera for a second so I can lower my blinds. Okay. I can't see anything.
All right, we'll just continue on. But and centric being in the middle. Okay. Anything else?
I mean, the funny thing is obviously that even if he proofread this in terms of checking over grammatical and spelling errors, I think he might probably have overlooked this error just because Word doesn't underline something like this.
Well, yeah, same thing like the happens often. But
yes,
I think some programs will note that to you. They use the more.
Yeah, what doesn't?
Yeah.
Usually, I've at least not seen it, and I didn't see it underlined when I copy pasted the entire thing over.
Now, Gio, this was submitted too. This is not like a first draft. This was his actual submission for whatever it was.
Yes, at least that's what he's claiming he submitted.
Okay, Helios $5.
That's what we can go by.
Helios $5 says, this is written like an 8th grader's first draft on their English class intro to research paper assignment before they had a classmate proofread it. Fight to Fat Earth, 5 pounds. Hey, buddy. Quote, density is a force. Anthony Riley, 2019. Sleeping Warrior for Dumb Fuck of the Year 2019. I don't think he's going to win. I think he's going to come second place, but density is a force. Yeah, I like to know how these flat earthers just make this shit up. I like to completely try to understand it from their mindset, how they think something like density is a force. A force is something that basically changes the vector of an object. So if something's traveling and you assert something on that, some kind of influence on that object, that it changes its vector, meaning it's changing its magnitude or direction, that's what's called a force, okay?
I'd actually slightly rephrase it. It's the vector of its movement because the object itself doesn't have a vector.
Yeah,
just the movement of the object.
The vector, okay, yes, in vector analysis, we're talking about movement, so I thought that was implied, but sure. The object itself doesn't have a vector in itself that's intrinsic, but it has a vector, which is a scalar quantity of magnitude with a direction. That better?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
that's.
I want to keep it simple, but Gio keeps up in the antes here. This is why you don't have PhDs and PhD students in your same hangout with you. You just don't do it.
Keep all the nerds as far apart as possible.
Hey, but I can keep up, mofo. I can keep up. It's just been a while. All right, continue on.
Okay, I think it's my turn, isn't it?
Yeah, go for it.
In the context of how partisan politics might be taught in schools under Section 406, this is the outline of the law, and the attention can now turn to what partisan politics is actually defined as. I just read the next one. In layman's terms, there's another apostrophe thing I just noticed.
Yep.
Partisan simply means holding strong views of a particular position. A similar adjective is protagonist. For some reason, partisan sounds somewhat more sinister than protagonist, but essentially they are of the same meaning.
What?
No, they aren't.
What?
No.
What?
I don't understand it either, Steve. Don't worry.
News to me on this one. I've read a lot of books with the protagonists before, but I don't recall this being synonymous here. But anyways, real quick, Res $5 Australian. If density was a force, FLIRFs would be one of the strongest forces in the universe. Yes. Force is a vector. But density is a scalar quantity.
Yeah, the thing about flat earthers is they're just a giant paradox. How can something like their heads be so dense yet also so empty at the same time? Okay, I'll continue.
Yeah,
Paragraph
please.
is finished.
Oh, God.
One that is partisan is basically an active support of a topic. For example, football fans are partisan in the way that Labour supporters are partisan, and also those that promote the interests in space are also partisan. Whether there's life beyond our world or not is a moot point. Those that argue that there is would be partisan to the ordinary layperson.
How did we jump to that? I don't know what he's
I think they call that a non sequitur.
I think they do too. I'm gonna go with non sequitur because that didn't make but all sense to me. I have no idea.
It's
He's just
definitely
literally
the best
pulling it out of his
non-sequitur
ass
that I've
here.
seen in a while.
Okay, protagonist. According to Aristotle in his book Poetics, the protagonist is the hero of the play, the tragedy. The protagonist is the person to whom everything happens and who must change by the end of the play. It is a real specific term. It is not in any way synonymous or equal or even in the ballpark with partisan.
No, not even remotely
it's not
so.
even an adjective.
Yeah.
Partisan obviously is used as an adjective in here,
Yes.
while protagonist is a noun.
Right.
His sentence is a similar adjective is protagonist. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, let people think about that for a second. John Rapp for 5 Australian says, I've been calling Riley's style of arguing, cherry picking, bad grammar, bad science, etc. The thesis fallacy, plus his obsession fallacies. Yeah, the thesis fallacy. It's just one big thing, right? The Riley fallacy. I don't know, man. This is bizarre.
The universal Riley thesis fallacy principle.
Yeah, I don't think Riley's ever going to live this down. Helios 575, $5. Riley has the largest, densest brain ever. Too bad it's also as smooth as a cue ball. Smooth brain.
Oh, and here's one that my gender studies instructor would be very proud of me for catching. He starts the paragraph with layman, and he ends the paragraph with lay person. Now, be consistent. Either use gender terms or do not use gender terms. Do not switch during the course of a single paragraph.
In the same paragraph, he goes from gender terms to non-gendered terms. That's just weird. It's like he's trying to be PC. Like here, he doesn't care about being PC, and then towards the end, he'll be PC, even though I think it's ridiculous. But there's
no way, Steve. There's no way, Steve, that this was a conscious decision. He just wrote the 2 terms without noticing that he changed it.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. But I'm so against this modification of language to be all ungendered. Where in San Francisco, they now you can't say manhole cover. That's too gender and triggering to say manhole cover.
It's a utility hole.
What do they use?
You can take your utility hole and shove it. It's a manhole.
Yeah, it's a utility access
hole.
cover.
Yeah, okay.
Utility, yeah, something like that. So anyway,
we're not going to have mankind any longer. We're just going to be a people. We're just a race of people.
All right, let me read again. Until there is a test case, it is actually difficult to think what a court might interpret partisan politics in law to be. Everybody could have a view and nobody would be wrong until there is a test case. However, where would a test case come from? Where would partisan politics actually end up being tested in court? What situations in school might partisan politics arise? It all depends on how you would apply the phrase partisan politics.
What the hell does flat Earth have to do with partisan politics? It's science, not politics. I mean, he's trying to argue that it is politics, but that just seems silly.
Basically, he's trying to argue that some scientific data can have political consequences. He's going into one example later with Al Gore's documentary An Inconvenient Truth.
Right.
However, what he fails to show in this entire thesis is that believing in a flat Earth would directly lead to a set of political beliefs, which is something that it just doesn't, because there's no reason to.
I don't know how one flows from the other, but whatever. I mean, unless you have a party that's based upon flat Earth, but I don't think they're going to get very far in politics.
And I questioned about the first sentence. Is actually difficult to think what a court might interpret as partisan politics in law to be. God, that's badly worded. But I asked, are you sure? Have you read all of the literature and all of the studies and all of the test cases? I mean, he is literally just throwing out presumptions. He also is, in the second sentence, I'm guessing he's saying that test cases eliminate personal opinions once they're settled.
Okay. I'll continue, I guess. The R on the application of Dimrock versus Secretary of State for Education and Skills, 2008. The matter was finally tested in a court. 10 years after royal assent, no test case had made it to court. This is a worthy movement to consider how many matters could have, for whatever reason, did not actually make. Okay.
Yeah. What? The sentence just ends.
It stopped. It's like boom, wall. Okay, that was weird. It raises the question of what might have been happening during this 10-year period? Question mark.
This is not a question.
Because Steve, justice delayed is justice denied, and it's the same for a murder case as it is for flat Earth. Good Lord.
Well, was it a perfect compliance with the law, or was it simply that nobody wants to engage in lengthy legal battles that no one really ever wins because of the court cost outweighing the benefit of the decided case? Question mark.
Yeah, well, he's repeating the same arguments that he made 5 or 6 paragraphs further up.
Conjecture aside, 10 years on, and the courts have a test case to allow the critical writing you are now currently reading.
I'm just saying there's dire rephrasing needed. He repeated the phrases test case at least 10 times or so in those 2 paragraphs.
Okay, but his first paragraph talks about until there is a test case. The second paragraph outlines a test case. That was answered 10 years ago.
So why was he saying until there's a court case when there's already a court case he's aware of?
So why is he saying until there's a test case?
I don't know.
This makes no sense.
Oh, God. Okay.
Oh, and he also leaves out how the case was concluded. They lost.
Does it support his thesis?
Yeah.
Continue. Oh, God, that was brutal.
Okay. The matter related to the once infamous video of Al Gore, the ex-vice president of the USA, and his contentious views relating to the matter of global warming. In short, a parent questioned why such strong views were being allowed to be shown in school, regardless of the merits of the claim that global warming is or is not a real issue. The issue in law was how should the school deal with this, and if there was accountability, where should the axe fall?
Oh, God. So first of all, if you're citing or if you're talking about a video of Al Gore, namely The Inconvenient Truth, cite it in some way. You have to actually show where you got this information from.
Oh, and the once infamous video, it is no longer infamous?
Yes. Also, I would just, why isn't he naming the documentary? I don't think the name appears in his entire document.
Yeah, he doesn't name it. He doesn't cite it. It's still pretty infamous video, and
if he had originally cited it, then we would know the name of the video.
Yeah.
Hasn't he done a sequel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well,
Still an Inconvenient Truth, I think it's called.
Yeah, Still an Inconvenient Truth. I do remember that. The problem with Al Gore is a lot of people had criticized him of not having the proper science, which is a fair criticism. Global warming in itself should never have been a questionable issue to begin with. I mean, there's politics involved with that, but the science is pretty unequivocal. So taking the political aspect out of the science, what does he want to argue? I mean, is he arguing that we shouldn't have documentaries made about science shown to the students, or that we shouldn't politicize them? Because I'm fine with the not politicizing much of this stuff if that's what he's arguing, but showing students documentaries, even Al Gore's, I got no issue with if the science is something that is at least sustainable. I think the question with his movie was, did he get some of the science right? And according to leading experts, no, there were some issues with it. I think that all his awards were revoked, if I'm not mistaken, for that particular documentary. Am I wrong on that? I mean, I'm going back a few years here.
I actually do not know in this case.
Uvas says, I think Al Gore divorced the president, so he is an ex-vice president.
Yeah. By the way, there's
former
vice president. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Gio?
Yeah, I read. Yes, I'll include the quote. Oh, also, something before for the last paragraph. Where should the axe fall? Seriously?
Melodramatic.
Very.
Yes. Why? Why is he doing that? I mean, this lawyer speak in a way where you try to push your language to be as emotional as possible.
And violent,
which is something that's probably valid in court itself, but not in a paper or thesis or whatever above law or about law. Whatever.
Okay, go ahead.
Whatever.
Okay. The case of Dimmock established that in law, partisan simply meant one-sided. Regardless of how you or I interpret the word partisan, it simply means one-sided. In the All England Law Reports, recite of the judge's actual words, although there was some earlier suggestion on behalf of the defendant that partisan might relate to party political, it soon became clear that it could not be and is not so limited. Mr. Downs pointed to directionary definitions suggesting the relevance of commitment or adherence to a cause. In my judgment, the best symbol for it might be one-sided. Judge Burton.
Okay, and partisan is one-sided. So what? I don't know again what he's going for. By the way, I don't know if this is right or wrong because I haven't done paper in ages. But when I remember, at the very bottom where it says IBID at 372, whenever I cited with IBID, it was just IBID.
IBID means that you're citing the same page. If you're citing a different page, you need to cite a different page.
You need to cite it completely different. So how is it IBID at 372?
Because he doesn't know how to cite work.
Okay, because I always wanted things changed because I that stood out to me, and I'm like, okay, that's not how you use IBID.
Yeah, not only that, but the citation notation should not go at the end of the paragraph written by the writer, but instead at the end of the block paragraph, at the end of the block quote. The judge's name should not be on there, and
like
block
right here.
Quotes are not italicized.
Yeah.
They, if they are direct quotes from someone speaking, then they should have quotation marks, but never italicized unless you're putting your emphasis on it. And clearly that's not what he's doing. He just doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Also, the formatting again is inconsistent because there's another example a few pages further down where he's also directly quoting somebody and doing it in a different way.
Yeah, and he still hasn't figured out apostrophes very well, I guess.
No,
Steve, that's not getting any better.
Hey, look, I shouldn't be critiquing. I'm not the world's best writer. People read my blog, point out mistakes all the time, and I'm cool with that. I've come to terms that I'm never going to be some fantastic writer. But I mean, there's just certain simple things like an apostrophe. I don't know.
Okay. All right, I'll go on. This is a major definition because the point of education is to teach the right thing, the truth, and the basic skills for adult life that we all need. There will always be one-sided teaching for most issues because most issues are not contentious. There may be some elements that are contentious within most topics, and especially in areas of history, religion, science. And one can easily see that the one-sided education is going to fall foul of the court's definition of partisan politics at the early point. To illustrate, Britain finally defeated Hitler in 1945. To mark the end of the Second World War. That is the taught history lesson. It is only if the matter becomes contentious that the original teaching then comes under the spotlight retrospectively.
Stop, I think that's enough because the paragraph is the entire page. So
the paragraph is the entire page, yeah.
Yes, so let's just stop there and go over that one.
Okay, so Godwin alert.
Yeah, Godwin.
Yeah, okay. I mean, seriously, there are millions of points you could make about history. Why did he pull out this one?
Why bring out the worst one of all things to compare things to, right? It's just to add hyperbole. I mean, why would he pick? I mean, he's not going for some kind of historical revisionism approach. No. Is he? Okay, then why is he trying to invoke Hitler and the Holocaust?
Also, I just want to point out the defeat of Hitler in 1945 was not the end of World War II.
Yeah, we still have Japan.
The surrender of the Japanese in August.
Yeah, I was going to say, we still have the Japanese to worry about because we dropped 2 bombs in August on the Japanese, October 6th and October 9th, Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
October? I think August.
August 6th and August 9th.
Yeah, I do realize that my specialty is the Cold War, and the Cold War didn't start until after World War II, but I seem to recall that Britain wasn't the only people bombing Hitler at the end of the war in Europe in World War II. I think there was a few other people. Yeah, there were the Soviets, there were the Americans.
But they didn't really do bombing, did they? They did the entire army thing. Bombing came more from the Western Allies, Great Britain, a little bit of France, and mostly America.
Yep. Oh, one-sided. One-sided is hyphenated. He does not hyphenate it through the entire freaking paper.
Yeah, yes. By the way, Sean notes.
I think I marked this every single time I saw it. On this page at least 3 times.
Yeah, Sean Huffer notes, and this is where I was going with it. He picked Hitler to compare the evils of the heliocentric model as some sort of false equivalence. That's exactly what I was thinking too, Sean. Right? Because he's actually does have this mindset that teaching round Earth is equivalent to teaching, some kind of Hitler-esque type approach to indoctrination. This is what I'm seeing as he's laying down the groundwork for that kind of narrative, that false equivalence.
Okay, guys, I'll be AFK for like 1 minute. I'll be back soon. Okay, you can just continue.
I'll continue.
Okay.
If the contentious nature never rises, then the teaching could not be deemed one-sided, as there would be no opposing view to argue that it was! Exclamation. Although immediately unfair, as the teachings were fine until objection arose, it does mean that any issue that becomes contentious requires that unfortunate retrospective reflection of what was done about it before it became contentious. For example, Christopher Columbus is cited in school as, quote, the founder of America, and this reference is easily found by anybody with a rudimentary search on a search engine online. However, it is well accepted that native Indians were actually already there, and that this is why there's an ongoing Red Indian legal issue in America to this day, and their rights.
Number one, if he's going to critique this, what is being taught, he needs to show that this is in fact being taught, because I can guarantee you this is not being taught in any school in Britain or in the United States.
He just throws it out there like it's a fact, right? I mean, I love the way he does that. He just throws it out there like it's already accepted, that he doesn't have to argue for it. It's prima facie the case.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm back. The founder of America? Seriously?
Yeah. Oh, he dismisses this reference as easily found by anybody with a rudimentary search on a search engine online. So?
Well, we know there's Native Americans here. Duh.
Okay,
also,
if you're going to argue it...
Strawman alert in this case. Nobody's teaching that Columbus founded America.
No, and if you're going to cite this as evidence, you need to provide it.
Yeah.
Bring it. Don't just say, oh, anyone can find it on a search on the internet.
And no one argues that there were native indigenous people here prior to Columbus. Nobody argues that.
Indigenous people, First Nations, Native Americans, Indians even. We'll take Indians, but never, ever, ever Native Indians.
Native Indians.
Never, ever Red Indians.
Yeah,
that is a colloquial British term, and should not be used
I would have left
in
that.
Any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I would definitely not have put that in there. Helios 575, $5. The Earth's shape is not contentious. Also, I don't think that Riley knows what contentious means when applied to the scientific consensus versus other things. Yeah, I don't. Helios, I don't think Riley understands the usages of a lot of words, and definitely not how to write a thesis. That's for sure. And again, I have no expertise in this. That's why I have them too. But I'm not an idiot. I mean, this is like second grade crap. All right, continue on. Wait, where are you going next?
I'll go. So
stop?
Yeah, we stopped at Red Indian legal issue in America to this day and their rights. What is this clause? He just puts clauses in.
Steve, you need to stop scrolling. It's in the fourth row from the top.
Sorry. Yeah, there's like this weird. There's just like clause, premise, subject, pronoun. I don't know. It's just like they put some stuff in a blender and threw it all together because there's a lot of like disjointed clauses here. Okay,
the next sentence is great. I just read it.
Go ahead.
So was Christopher Columbus actually the founder of America? Of course he wasn't. He's just identified as being so to the Western world.
Where?
No.
Where?
No.
I don't know where this happens.
I don't think that Riley understands what a founder is. Or does he think that a founder is somebody who finds something?
Oh, I don't know. No. Does he think that? Okay, that's a good question. Does he think that because Columbus found America for the eastern side of the world, Europeans, you guys over there, whatever, that somehow he's a founder of the country? Because he didn't found the country. I mean, not like we would think of as like Washington, Jefferson, and those countries, the country's actual founders that set up a actual country here to have. Or how's he widely using this term?
I think the word he's searching for is discoverer.
Yeah, I mean, he may have discovered, and even then, there's question of did he really discover America, but whatever.
Yeah, but at least then he would make an argument, which is something that he is not doing right now because he's basically strawmanning.
Yeah, he sets up the straw man, he knocks it down, he kicks it around for a little while, he sets it on fire and says, "Why did you create that straw man?"
No, I don't actually think that he understands that he created a straw man here. I think he's stupid enough to actually believe this.
Yeah, I don't think this was intentional straw manning. I think that he just doesn't get it. But whatever. I don't think he's that smart to specifically try to build an effigy just to tear it down for whatever reason. Yeah. I don't think it was malicious. I think it was just inept. But whatever. Yeah. Okay,
to teach that he was the founder is potentially one-sided, but it relies on that other side being known or found. Then, retrospectively speaking, the one-sidedness of Christopher Columbus can then be established, and then the Dimmock case deems that the teaching originally then becomes the subject of the law. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 times the word "then" in that sentence. Just saying.
I want to see a one-sided Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, that was a terrible accident with the rotary saw.
The one-sidedness of Christopher Columbus can then be established. I don't know what that means.
Who knows?
Okay. Go ahead.
Do you want to continue?
Oh, let me continue. All right. It depends totally on whether or not an opposing view is found after the event of teaching, so this means the teaching must be preemptive to some degree. Most areas of education have some element of possible contentiousness to them, which raises the question, should education safeguard against them all, at the expense of time with the children teaching the rest of the syllabus, or should it risk that it gets through the education without being challenged? Should it also be the case that retrospective consideration of how issues were taught be challenged? For this paper, of course, it should. I have no idea what he's saying.
It's garbled, and it's not a paper, but $5, newsflash. Flurfers wrote a thesis, and it's pretty dumb. In other news, water consists of 1 hydrogen and 2 oxygen atoms, which is pretty much more than Riley knows about chemistry.
I think what Riley is trying to say here is that as soon as there's one single whack job that disagrees with history in this case, don't teach it at all.
Yeah, so if there's any controversy whatsoever, if one person disagrees, then it shouldn't be taught.
Okay, he states at the top of the page that most issues are not contentious. By the bottom of the page, he's saying very few issues, very few things that are taught are not contentious. He has just switched his argument 180 degrees.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, so which is it?
You're right.
Yeah. So which should we go with?
Yeah, let us know when you figure it out. Okay. Educating the nation should not be indoctrination, and critical analysis of current thinking of how we are educated has to appreciate the importance of the Dimmock case, because in deeming the, quote, one-sided teachings as caught by the law, it means that the nation as a whole can actually challenge how they were taught certain topics. I'm going to let you guys go on with this.
What? I think I need to read that again.
I
don't know.
Yeah.
Can we just pass? I don't even know what the hell that's supposed to say.
Yeah.
It took one issue with being taught that Christopher Columbus was taught incorrectly to them, and that they should have been aware that there were red Indians there before Christopher Columbus. Dimbrick would deem, at least on the face of it, that one-sided teachers were indeed partisan, and the issue was political, and that the person may in law be able to challenge that Christopher Columbus' teachings if they felt so strongly. The law also does state it must be promoted, not just taught, but this is merely, for example, only, again, where is he established that this is being taught in any school?
He hasn't established it.
Not even remotely so. So again, he sets up a straw man or an effigy, then says, oh, well, this shouldn't be the case. Well, he hasn't established that it is the case. And again, the terminology he uses here, red Indians, really?
Yeah, we're at Hitchens' razor at this point. Which is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Yes, so far the last page should have been full of citations.
I don't think there was one.
Last time I checked, there are none.
Yeah.
Should it be full? And I'm not even talking about the spelling error and grammatical errors. I've given up on those. I have them marked here if anyone wants a copy. But
some of them are actually quite hilarious, though.
Yeah, I have got them marked. It's just that we'll never get through this if we do point out all of the bad ones.
I think this needs to be a video series. We're never gonna make it in one go, Steve.
No.
Okay, I'll continue. The demo case gave us the factors to be considered with regard how to decide if there was actually something to pay more attention to the weight it might be taught in the national curriculum. Okay, 1. A superficial treatment of the subject matter typified by portraying factual or philosophical premises as being self-evident or trite with insufficient explanation or justification and without any indication that they might be the subject of legitimate controversy. The misleading use of scientific data, misrepresentations, and half-truths and one-sidedness. 2. The deployment of material in such a way as to prevent pupils meaningfully testing the veracity of the material and forming an independent understanding as to how reliable it was. 3. The exaltation of protagonists and their motives coupled with the demonization of opponents and their motives. And 4. The derivation of moral expedient from assumed consequences requiring the viewer to adopt a particular view and course of action in order to do it right as opposed to wrong.
What he has set out here, as I'm guessing these are sections of the Education Act. It's impossible to tell from his citation, but what he does in the next couple of pages of this paper is go through each of these separately and makes a case that flat Earth is not teaching flat Earth, violates each of these. But he doesn't tell us that that's what he's going to do.
I think actually he's not citing this. So this paragraph with the 4 points, the 4 bullet points, is not coming from the law. It's from the court's decision. That he was talking about.
All right. So, but he's got to spell out. This is what should be in his methodology, is that he's going to take these points and spell them out with the following evidence. Not that I looked up a bunch of stuff and anyway, he does a really poor job of setting up what he's going to do now. He should be talking about, this is how I'm going to structure it from here on out. He's too afraid to break the fourth wall. And you want to leave these kind of details very transparent, not try to hide them and hope that your reader kind of picks up on it. And he's hoping that we're going to pick up on it.
All right, where do you want to go from here? This is really getting convoluted. So, but I think it's trying to get into the science now.
No, that'll take some more time, I think.
Oh God.
No, he's gonna take page after page to go through these four points. But as I say, he doesn't set up that structure very nicely, so it's impossible to follow what exactly he's doing.
Where are we at here? Nicholas Copernicus?
Yes.
Actually, I didn't read the last sentence before that, I think.
These factors are the focus of this paper in the context of how they are applied. Nicholas Copernicus' heliocentric model is the current taught model in the national curriculum. The sun is 93 million miles away. It is the center of our solar system, and all planets revolve around it. Its Earth's circumference is 24,900 miles, and it sits third closest to the sun and re-rotate once every day, thus giving a sunrise and sunset. We have an axial tilt, and this tilt gives us seasons, and the moon causes the tide of the Earth. Hey, got something kind of right. Yeah. This is the familiar position that we all should be aware if you want to state schooling. What the fuck does this? Wait, be aware if you want to state schooling.
If you went to state schooling.
Went.
He's meaning if you went to a public school
I swear to God, look like want. I'm reading this look like want to me. Yeah. It's an E.
Yes,
if you
it's went.
I'm grinning here. Sorry. If you went to state schooling after 1988, this is what you were taught. Oh, okay. Well, I think it's been taught for a very long time prior to that.
But he shouldn't be just summarizing it like this without any citation. He should be going back into textbooks, telling you what grade this is taught, telling you what textbook was used, telling you what page it is on. Number one. Number two, Copernicus's model is not the model we study. Copernicus's ideas are built on and verified. We're taught that Copernicus is this guy who, in the modern times, we observe as being the guy who first puts forward the idea of heliocentricity. That's leaving out the Greeks. But he should be telling us exactly what the textbooks say, not his little straw man.
Yeah, and he points
out
what
happened in the education
as somebody
system.
points out in the live chat, the Copernicus model doesn't take into account ellipses. The orbits are elliptical; they're not round. And in the Copernicus model, they were round with zero eccentricity. So there's a complete disconnect there if he thinks that the Copernicus model is actually what is actually being taught. Now, yes. Heliocentric is the case, but that's not the orbital way it's being taught. And by the way, what the hell does 1988 have to do with anything? I'm just curious what happened there.
That's when the Education Act came out.
Yeah.
So because of the Education Act, that's when we started learning about heliocentricity, and I don't know how he's thinking that this is some kind of a current thing.
No, basically he's saying that if you were taught in school after 1988, you were guaranteed to have heard this in school.
Oh, okay.
Before it was not guaranteed.
Okay. Dora, 2 pounds, 4 new glasses. I got contacts, but I can read far. I can see far away very clear, but reading close, like my screens are, I have to kind of step back a little bit. All right,
that means that you're getting old. Just
I
saying.
am. Oh, you have no idea. Okay.
Continue on. In Dimmock, the court decided that a one-sided view was deemed partisan. This allows retrospective consideration of the issue. We also see the factors that help us decide if the Copernican model being taught might fall foul of the law. The Copernican model satisfies arguably all 4 factors in determining whether or not it falls within the ambit of Section 406, and if it does, it would have to be prohibited from being promoted because it is the promotion of partisan politics that is forbidden.
Okay, I'm going to try to parse this, and Dr. Griffith, you maybe guide me on this. Is he arguing that because the Copernican model, which by the way isn't the model we use, but arguendo, because that's being taught supposedly, and it's one-sided, meaning that there's nobody out there arguing against it, that because there's nobody arguing against it, it's considered one-sided partisan politics and therefore forbidden to be taught? Because there's nobody Arguing against it?
Yeah, basically saying it should be forbidden to be taught because there are people who argue against it.
But
that's what he's saying later. He will cite the flat earthers as arguing against the Copernican model.
But there's no scientists that are arguing against it. That's
something he's completely ignoring. That's the fact. He thinks that everybody, basically every web job on the internet qualifies at getting a say.
Yeah, they don't. They don't get a say. They don't get a seat at the table. Sorry, it's just they don't.
Yeah, he's going to handle that later on in the paper when he says that law courts are far better suited to answer these scientific questions than scientists, because scientists tend to be political in nature and only talk about what they've been indoctrinated to say, but that law courts, being completely objective, would be a better format to decide these scientific questions.
Yeah, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
He does say that.
Helios, $5.75, $5. Is Roddy trying to make this undebunkable via attrition like Gallop, but remove the multiple arguments and insert just unfocused ramblings? Yes, it seems so.
Yes.
This is not even wrong level stuff. I mean, it's just so bizarre. If you ever seen something like Time Cube, you remember that? This is on that level.
Actually, no.
You've never seen Time Cube? I don't know. I don't. You have to go the Wayback Machine. I don't know if it's still around, but TimeCube.com was one of the most bizarrest rambling on the internet one time. Check it out.
What was it about?
The Earth is a cube, and it's in fourth dimensional hypersphere of prime numbers that go through the 33rd vortex of the Illuminati. I don't know.
Okay. Where's my suicide again? Where's my Suicide X again when I need it?
If you haven't seen Time Cube, go check it out.
I will. Steve, can you do me a favor and refresh your stream and Skype because it's all gambled on my end?
Refresh Skype, yes.
Yeah, just switch off the stream, yes. the screen sharing, and switch it back on again.
I get the right. There we go. Is that better?
Yes, much better. It was full of artifacts for me.
Yep. Cool.
Yes, okay. Oh, Steve, you've got to catch the last super chat.
Helios. Oh, excuse me. Translator Carminium, $5. This feels pretty much like a flat Earth version of the Kitzmüller versus Dover. Yeah, well.
I kept thinking of Kitzmüller versus Dover this whole reading.
So, did you ever read the judges?
Why didn't he look at that?
Did you ever read the judges' report on Kitzmüller versus Dover?
Yes, I
did.
It's brilliant.
It is really one of the best things I've ever read. It's really good. If you guys have not read it, go read the judges' comments on that particular trial. Wow, he really did not hold back, and he was a Christian, by the way. So,
not only was he a Christian, he was a Republican that was put into office by George Bush.
Yeah, and he basically annihilated them. So he was very, very blunt, and I loved it.
All right. Frank just put it out. C design proponents.
Yes, C design proponents. All right, where are we at here?
Yeah, just the next page. Next page. Why the hell is the entire paragraph before that in italics?
Whatever. I have no idea.
Because it was prettier that way.
Plus, and this reminds, I don't know, the style right here where he puts like 6 pages. This kind of reminds me of like a Watchtower thing for some reason.
Yeah, no idea.
Okay.
But it looks odd, I agree.
Yeah, it looks odd. Okay, go ahead.
Why does it say page? Just write the number. Everybody understands that's the number of the page. I don't have to physically write page. Alrighty. The issue remaining is whether or not the factors above are satisfied. If the teachings of the Copernican model satisfy the factors, it would be consistent with Dimmock, and the court would likely rule that it is taught by Section 406 and should be forbidden teachings by that law. If the factors are not satisfied, the law would not apply. The 4 factors will now be addressed in turn and apply to the Copernican teachings of the national curriculum. I don't think I have to repeat it.
No.
Yeah.
He's trying to use case law to say that if people argue against the Copernicus model, which again, not the model we use, but whatever, that it shouldn't be taught to any students if there's anybody arguing against it?
Yeah.
That's a pretty dumb argument.
And that basically that's not what we're teaching. I think it boils down to that. And he keeps over and over and over the Copernican model.
It's a hell of a straw man.
Yeah.
It's hard to simply this first factor in relation to the Copernican teaching, because the reader would have to be aware that the Copernican model is actually subject to legitimate controversy. It is.
Stop.
Well, it
is
is.
The grammar really as fucked as I think it is?
Yeah, I'm trying to read that. Go ahead. You try.
It is hard to simply this first factor in relation. No.
Simplify. To Riley's credit, Mr. Riley, you got the correct form of its in this situation.
Hey,
it is apostrophe. I didn't catch that. Very good. He got something correct. I'm so happy for him. Yeah. And then he blows it by just having a paragraph going, "It is." Period.
Yeah. Get that out. Just remove that. Why is that in there?
I don't know. It's to the unaware, it cannot be explained in this document with much comprehension because of the depth of the controversy itself, but it needs to be realized that the Copernican model is not accepted by all. Well, so the fuck what? And again, not the model we use.
What are the last 12 pages of this freaking dissertation? Is all restated almost entirety their idea of science, of the flat Earth. It's not that he's not going to address it. He's going to address it in painful detail, unfortunately.
Yeah, and in very painful dumb fuckery.
Mm-hmm.
People that accept Copernicus and his model are known as heliocentrists, but there are others that do not accept Copernicus. For example, Aristotelian supporters believe that the universe revolves around us, and we are known as geocentrists. There are people that see the Earth as flat, and they are known as flat earthers. And there are also people that support that we were created as a construct by some divine intervention, God or otherwise, and is known as creationist. By the way, I should throw this out there. Do you guys remember Rick Delano from The Principal?
Delano TV?
No, Rick Delano. He was the one working with, quote, Dr. Robert Sunjidance on the movie The Principal.
Actually, no, I don't.
The Principal was a movie about geocentrists. It was Sunjidance and Rick Delano that made this movie called The Principal years ago. It was about trying to debunk the Copernican model and the anthropomorphic principle. But we've had them on the Non Sequitur show before. That's why I'm running. People maybe remember. But Rick Delano and his promoter actually reached out to me. They just did a debate with Dr. Michael Shermer, and he wants to come on this channel. Rick Delano does. I don't know about Shermer, but I'm working with him to have him back on. So if people don't remember that. So if you guys are interested in the geocentric argument, we're going to have the guy that actually promotes geocentrism on. He's a nice guy, actually, but he does a lot of the same fallacies. I believe it was either him or Dr. Surgeonus. I don't know why I call him doctor. He's not a real doctor, but Sungenis, sorry, Robert Sungenis. I got them to admit that you could basically make these Galilean transformations anywhere, making anything the center of the universe. So the question I posed to them one time was, why are we at a very special position as opposed to any other transformation you use to put something else as the center of the universe, right? There has to be a reason why we are the special frame of reference. And their response was God. That's not a scientific explanation. So they basically shot themselves in the foot by finally admitting that the only reason why they prefer a geocentric model was because God, not because of any kind of math or physics, which was their argument initially, that they could show using physics and mathematics that the Earth is literally the center of the universe, which, again, you could do the same mathematics to show anywhere is the center of the universe. And you have to have some kind of thing that delimitates between one or the other. If there's no distinction between where we are and, let's say, Jupiter as the center of the universe, and your only answer to that is, well, God made this place special, that's not a scientific argument.
But that's just the point in time where you just switch off because there's no discussion to be had with them anymore. As soon as they say because God, that's where the conversation stops.
Well, especially because they're arguing from a scientific approach, right? The whole point of the principle was trying to show science through using the cosmic microwave background radiation, where we were somehow at a special frame of reference. They failed in that. Matter of fact, their view of the science was completely grossly incorrect. They were off quite a bit on their analysis. But when you have to say that we are special only because God has made us so, you're no longer in the realm of science. And so I'm happy to have Rick back on. I actually like the guy, but I just thought I'd throw that back out there that he actually wants to come on the channel after his debate with Sherman, which I haven't watched yet. But anyways, moving on.
Definitely watch that.
Yeah, I'll have to find it. They gave me the link to watch it. Anyways,
I'll continue.
Continue.
The point to take here is that it is certainly not just accepted to be true by all. There is legitimate controversy, and this simply is not told when children learn about the solar system in school. It really is taught as fact, but it should be taught that there are opposing views because there are opposing views. Teaching the Copernican model as a fact is wrong. It should be taught as a widely accepted position only.
Okay, well, again, straw man. Okay,
yeah, and citation needed. Citation needed for the scientific or for the scientists who actually disagree with that.
Yeah, and let's say that let's say he's just talking about the heliocentric aspect of the Copernican model rather than the eccentricities of the orbits. So let's just say that the sun is the center of the universe, or the center of the solar system. Now, that is a convenience factor. We actually make the sun the center because we will say that things that revolve around it or around the barycenter are what is going to be considered to be the center, right? Because you can make the mathematics anything. I could say that everything is rotating around us and make us the frame of reference. That's just math.
Yes, there's just a difference there because having the sun or the barycenter in the center is the mathematically easiest way to do this.
Right.
Everything else just gets infinitely more complicated after a while.
You've seen when they started early when they were trying to do the modeling, they had to use epicycles.
Yes, it gets so fucking complicated.
Right.
It's still an approximation that doesn't work very well, and the inaccuracies just start piling up after a number of decades.
So that's one of the reasons why we use that kind of modeling, because it's just the simplest way. I mean, even when you fire a bullet, it's actually an elliptical path because there's two focal points right on where underneath the parabola and one way below on the other side of the Earth. But we don't have to use elliptical mathematics to describe the trajectory because parabolic equations work just fine. They'll approximate it so well that why complicate it with using very much more difficult mathematics like elliptical orbits than a simple parabolic equation, which you learn in elementary school or junior high or whatever. But
junior high, at least.
Yeah, junior high. Yeah, you should know basic kinematics and parabolic equations.
7th grade or something.
Yeah, so people know what a parabola is, and it's just a parabola. It goes here and here. It's very simple. Why add all that other stuff in the math that you're just going to negate out anyways? It's just going to fall out. This is the same thing about why the sun is the center of the solar system, because it's just a very simplistic way of looking at it, and it works. What does he want to argue? That the sun is not the center of the solar system? What good would that do? Because it just complicates the math, even though you theoretically could argue that. But why?
Well, but he's equating regular people's opinion with the opinion of scientists.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well.
Again, false equivalence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that teaching the Copernican model is in fact wrong. Model as fact is wrong. It should be taught as a widely accepted position only, widely accepted by pretty much all the scientists who understand orbital mechanics.
There's a huge consensus there, to say the least.
Yeah, the consensus is as big as you get.
That's actually a challenge. Anthony, if you listen, find me one scientist who has credentials in the relevant fields that disagrees with this.
None. Like I said, even Dr. Sungenis is not an actual doctor. I don't know why I keep calling him doctors. This is like a Hovind doctor. But
yeah, well, I'm obviously talking about somebody who is a PhD astronomer, for example.
You won't find any. Find one astrophysicist that thinks that the Earth is flat or that the sun is not the center.
Go. That's the point. And Riley probably understands that that's the case and therefore has to elevate laymen that know shit about the topic to the same level as PhD scientists.
Yeah, they don't get this. They don't get a seat at that table. Gerhard, they didn't do the work, right? Gerhard Selig, 5 pounds. Don't miss the punchline. If something cannot be taught because there are opposing views, then nothing can be taught at all. Well, that's kind of the slippery slope of that, would it not be? I mean, if anybody disagrees, therefore we cannot teach this to children. So what do we teach about? Things that only 100% of the population agree with? Because that doesn't happen. You got idiots out there that don't even agree 1 + 1 = 2, I guess.
There will always be one single nut job because we have 8 billion people on this planet. We will find one that has, let's just say, unconventional views about any given topic. Hey, my computer is throwing snakes at me. Nice. You will find one.
All right, continue on. I don't know where we're at.
Okay. Shall I do it?
Yeah.
The misleading use of science data is mentioned. Does the Copernican model use misleading data? Well, the sun is considered to be around 93 million miles away, and the scientific data that supports this assertion comes from 2 sources. Eratosthenes and his sticks in the ground measurements, quote measurements, and radio signal reflections from the Jodrell Bank Observatory, now owned by the University of Manchester. In short, Eratosthenes is credited as the first person to accurately cite the circumference of the Earth. However, the maths he applied assumed the Earth was a sphere because on his interpretation of shadows on a particular day around the Mediterranean Sea, he did not know it was a sphere, and if he did, no evidence of this knowledge is presented. Regardless...
Stop. I think the paragraph actually ends
There's
here.
So much here.
Okay, first of all, citation needed for those 2 sources. He's saying there's 2 sources, Eratosthenes, whatever, and the Jodrell Bank Observatory. And by the way, Jodrell Bank is also written wrong. There's an L missing at the end of Jodrell. Just saying.
That's what I.
And our entire understanding of the distance of the sun is based upon these only 2 sources. And Eratosthenes.
That's what he's thinking.
And Eratosthenes did not address the distance to the sun. He only addressed the circumference of the Earth. Period.
It's getting worse later.
And the reason Eratosthenes, what he was thinking, and I'm going back a ways on this, but from what I remember, he knew there was a well that at a certain time of the year always had the sun directly above it, right? So he knew that there'd be a shadow, would be orthogonal or perpendicular to the ground.
The well at Cyrene is on it's on the Tropic of Cancer.
Okay, so at that point, at that noon, the sun is going to be directly above that well.
Right.
Okay. He also knew somewhere else in Greece that there was an obelisk that cast a shadow that was not perpendicular. It actually cast a length. The only way to explain this, why you have 2 different shadows from a sun, which has perpendicular rays coming down to us, is if that obelisk was on a curve apart from the well.
Mm-hmm. And
Earth curved.
But he makes the point, and he's somewhat accurate in that. Using 2 pieces of data, you could almost make it work on a flat Earth. Make it work on a flat Earth.
You're breaking up.
Breaking up. There,
well, he used 2 sticks, but if you use 3 shadows, that will disprove flat Earth.
Yes, basically, because when you have only 2 data points, you can approximate any curve, any mathematical function over that to fit those 2 identical points. As soon as you have 3, this doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I like the way he says, and he emphasizes no by italics. He did not know it was a sphere. I question Riley on a lot of things, but his understanding of epistemology is probably absolute dog shit. Right. Yeah. So him trying to throw this into the realm of what he knows, almost reminiscent of a precept thing. But, is he going to start diving into what it means to be knowledge? Is he going to get a skepticism? I think that Eratosthenes did know that the Earth was a sphere. I think he could claim that as knowledge. He was not a Pyrrhonian skeptic or an academic skeptic by knowledge of any kind. So he probably would claim that he had that kind of knowledge, especially after he did the experiment and said, I have confirmation of this. It is true that the Earth is curved. I believe it, and I have justification for my belief. That's knowledge, man.
But at that point, not only does he have the knowledge that it's a sphere, he can only show what approximate radius it has.
Well, I mean, he got the radius pretty well close. I mean, he was a little off. But,
he got the circumference probably within 1.6 to 16%. We don't know, because he measured the distance between Cyrene and Alexandria, which is where the two places he did his experiments. And we don't know exactly what the measurement he used was.
Well, he had somebody walk it.
He had someone walk it.
He literally walk. How many kilometers is that? It's 600 some kilometers, some ridiculous amount.
Yeah, it's like 500 kilometers.
Yeah, he had somebody literally walk from Alexandria to Cyrene to see the distance. I mean, and mark it down. Can you imagine being that guy?
No.
They had professionals who did that at the time.
That must be a damn good work to walk 500 kilometers and count your footsteps.
Yep.
Not only doing that, remember, it's through the desert.
And be accurate?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. But anyways, that's a true story. He actually, supposedly he paid somebody to go walk that.
Okay, but that first sentence, the misleading use of scientific data is mentioned. By whom? Where? No citation. It's in quotes. Where does this misleading use of scientific data is mentioned? This is a ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he's quoting the court decision earlier, because it actually says the misleading use of scientific data.
Yeah, but he's applying.
So he's referring to the court decision.
Sure, but
I see that.
I get that, but he's applying it to saying that somehow the Earth curvature is misleading use of scientific data. Like Eratosthenes' experiment was somehow misleading people. I don't know.
Oh, he will.
Well, if he had cited it properly,
Steve, he will soon point out why he thinks it's misleading.
Let's see. He did not know it was a sphere, and if he did, no evidence of this knowledge was presented. Regarding his interpretation, it has two interpretations, not one. It could be interpreted that the Earth is spherical in shape with a distant sun, but it can also be interpreted as a plane with a local sun circling overhead. However, it is being taught that there's only one possible interpretation. This is wrong, and there are two, and that for that reason, it is satisfying criteria. Quote, misleading use of scientific data could be interpreted two ways, not just one. Matter of fact, no, it cannot be interpreted that other way because, as explained, using 3 points of data, 3 sticks, 3 shadows, that will actually falsify a plane model.
Yes, at least 3. Obviously, the more you get, the better it will become.
3 minimum, you can do it.
Yes, exactly. 3 minimum. 3 is the minimum for this.
So where's Anthony Riley getting this interpretation that there's 2 possible? By the way, having a possibility does not mean that it's something that could be necessarily viable. What could argue it's possible that we're in a simulator and the Earth is just being beamed to us that it looks curved even though it's flat. There are all kinds of what's called brute possibilities or bare possibilities. Sorry. As Bertrand Russell would say, a bare possibility. But you can't take every bare possibility into your ontology because you start getting bloated really quick. So because there might be possible interpretations of something are not grounds to say there are multiple ways to interpret things to a child trying to learn this type of science, right? There's one way to interpret it that is parsimonious and within the realm of what I would consider to be scientific consensus, right? I don't understand his argument that just because there might be a possible different way of interpreting something, it should be taught. It's like teach the controversy when there is no controversy because some lay people think the Earth is flat. That's not controversy.
Mm-mm.
What am I missing here?
Nothing so far, but I'm warning you, Steve. The next 1 page or so will be very, very painful.
Well, good. I'll have.
Oh, this is going to hurt.
Do that then.
Yes, this is going to really hurt.
Let her suffer.
It's my turn, I think.
Oh, okay, fine. You suffered, Gio. Go ahead, suffer.
Yeah, I will suffer. It's fine. I can handle suffering. The modern way of measuring the distance to the sun is cited from Jodrell Bank. Basically, a radio wave, part of the light frequency, bouncing back from Venus is cited as being the current science.
Stop! I can't take it already. What?
Okay, what he's trying to say is that using a radio telescope, you can bounce radar waves at Venus and measure the time it takes for them to be sent there and back.
But this is radio wave part of light frequency.
Yeah, no. The way I would write this is a very long electromagnetic wave.
Yes.
That's what radio wave is. Yeah.
It's the electromagnetic spectrum of which visible light and radio waves are both part of the spectrum. Frequency is a measurement, not a spectrum.
Right. Frequency is a very specific thing based on the reciprocal of the wavelength. Based upon you have a certain photonic energy, you can derive the wavelength that you know the frequency, and vice versa.
Right. The wavelength determines where whatever you're talking about is positioned on the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yep.
He obviously does not know science.
This is just bizarre.
No, he does not.
Yeah.
Let me continue.
Right.
And the problem is that there are valid questions about the verification of the claim. The claim is that a pulse of light was sent to and from Venus through a vacuum, and the time taken for the ping to return back to Earth was waited for, and then the noise was then interpreted for the anticipated reflected ping.
Noise was interpreted for. I like to see that data analysis on that. The noise was interpreted for.
Yeah, basically he's claiming that whoever made this observation mistook background noise for the actual signal.
Oh, for God's sake.
Now, was it a radio wave or was it a pulse of light? He's using both terms as part of this experiment.
Two vastly different things.
And one thing that
they're equivalent. I mean, they're both in the spectrum, but they're different parts of the spectrum here. Radio wave is not a light wave. A light wave is not a radio wave.
Yes, so in terms of Venus, I think it was a radar signal, a radar pulse.
Yeah, and what I would like to point out, just for the benefit of Mr. Riley et al., the idea of the time taken for the ping to return back to Earth was waited for. Not only is it very bad English, but that makes time the independent variable, doesn't it?
That's true.
And by the way, isn't it a quantum eraser who always argues that time can never be the independent variable when almost in every experiment time is the independent variable? That's what.
Yes.
And so. He loves that. He's like, he made a whole video one time arguing that Steve's an idiot, in the third person there, because, I try to explain to him that time is an independent variable, and he refuses to accept that. And then he had his little, remember, Geostreber, you remember a little flat earth follower that he had that actually debated Red's rhetoric and had argued that if you stand in one position and look north, you can actually see a star. The same star, if you turn around and go 180 degrees, you can see the same star, and every point of the compass you can see that star. Who was that?
Yes, I remember that.
Who was it? Because the Earth had self-illumination. Oh my God!
God damn it!
I started with a B, wasn't it?
Was that P. Moss? Maybe?
No, and it wasn't
P. Marble.
No, it was a girl, and it wasn't Debbie Downer or
either Debbie or Betty.
Betty. It was Betty. Yeah, started with a B. Betty.
You do realize that I had Betty on my channel as well. Once.
Betty von Volsen. Yes, that was her name. Wow, she was really stupid. But anyways, back to this.
Regarding this entire time not being an independent variable thing, anybody who has ever used a microwave oven should know otherwise. Yeah. Because if you run your Pop-Tarts for 30 seconds, they're going to be cold. Right, not Pop-Tarts, tacos, whatever. If you run them for 4 minutes in the same oven at the same power setting, you're just going to burn your fucking tongue out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's enough of an experiment for me to show that time can be used as an independent,
of course.
Yes, as independent variable. And Riley does not get that.
Well, because
he literally have to stretch time.
Doesn't he hang out with Quantum Eraser, who's also a flat earther? Okay.
He does, yes.
I continue on. There was no scientific consensus as to what the interpretation of what they were looking at was until someone at Jet Propulsion Laboratories in America looked at the data and interpreted it for them. And once JPL put their name to it, then it became accepted.
So, citation needed.
Yeah.
If he's claiming that that's the case, there should be a track record of either papers or just a discussion between scientists, whether that might actually be letters or emails or whatever, that actually show that he's right here.
Yeah, this is bare assertion, just straight up.
Yeah, he's basically trying to accuse them of argument from authority.
He's pulling this
because it was JPL.
He's pulling this out of some place where the sun doesn't shine, and that is not Cyrene.
It does at noon. right, continue on. Let's kind of knock it through because we're going to have to wrap this up soon and do a part 2.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, the level of detail of how it was proven is, on the face of it, impressive, and one can easily accept it as proving the point. But there are 2 issues. First, the lack of scientific consensus. Wait, what? If it was in fact a reflected ping from Venus, why wasn't, again, apostrophe, the interpretation agreed by most everybody? Second, the time they paste the expected return ping data is based upon the speed of light traveling through through space without any other factors, including the time it takes for the light to traverse the distance. Secondly, time.
Stop. Steve, prepare for the next sentence.
Okay, this is going to hurt, right? Secondly, the time duration is based upon Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. Well, I'm seizing here, I think. Astrophysics know the way the light in the sky interact with each other. Astronomy can tell you when certain lights and for how long, but that doesn't mean they know the distance to any of these lights. To get a distance, you either need measurement it directly, obviously impossible, or find a credible way to calculate it. So there's no doubt to its inaccuracy. Neither exists. Bullshit. There's so many different ways to calculate distance. It's ridiculous, including just simple things like parallax. But what the fuck does Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion, which has to do with the periodicity of the orbit based upon the eccentricity of the orbit on its period, compared to the time of the period to the orbit area that it sweeps around.
Yes, Steve, I have no idea what he's trying to say here.
I mean, I don't remember the exact formula. It's something cute. What's the period?
Related?
The area. I remember Kepler's third law. I'm not looking this shit up. It's something along the lines of the area swept around in one complete rotation is equal to 1/3 of the time it takes, or 3 times cubed.
Yeah,
something
it's
like
the,
that.
Yes, it's the difference of the.
The important thing is that's a constant over time.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And number 2, he has 2 secondlies.
Yes.
Let's see now. Astrophysics knows the way the lights in the sky interact. No, astrophysicists know the way. It's astrophysics is a discipline. It's not sentient.
Yeah, he's anthropomorphized the subject of astrophysics.
Yes.
Later he'll be talking about reification fallacies, which is hilarious.
Oh yeah. That's next. That's coming up.
He has a reification fallacy as well.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's get through this second page real quick, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. All right. The distance to the sun mathematically is based on the application of Christian Huygens' determination that is ingenious and accurate and deserves to be better known. End quote. Ordinarily, a citation would be correctly placed in the footnotes, but this ingenious and accurate determination needs place in the main body of text because of how weak in law the citation reads.
Why did he write this into his thesis? This is a comment that somebody correcting his thesis might write on it.
Yeah, this is a comment about the thesis.
Yes.
This is weird.
This is weird. This is the most. Steve, do me a favor and highlight the comment I wrote about this.
Alexander, what the fuck is this? Did you forget to delete a comment or something? Oh, that's hilarious.
Also, take a look at the quotations 4 and 5. You can theoretically cite online sources, but you have to tell the reader when you actually access those, because obviously links can change over time.
Man, this was.
He's
page
also
8.
using the terms citation and quotation interchangeably.
Yeah, that's.
Observing that he doesn't know how to cite anything, that's a mistake that he's prone to make.
And by the way, his citations are basically just putting a web page link.
Yeah.
Yes, all of them. Some of them actually, Steve, you will see that later, that are no longer working. There are YouTube videos that are deleted, and where the entire channels are deleted.
I'm expecting,
including the one of Aaron.
I swear to God, I'm expecting it here to be him citing his hard drive at some point.
Actually, yes. Steve, it's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. It does get worse. On all of his citations, I have the same note: incomplete, insufficient, and not scholarly.
Can you show your little pink or your little red writing real quick?
Yeah,
Look at that. So
incomplete, insufficient, and not scholarly.
Not focusing. Your webcam is not focusing.
We can see it. I got it.
Okay, yeah, well.
Yeah.
It's hard to see.
It's just page after page after page of this.
He cited Eric DeBay. There you go. There's a citation for you.
Okay, so are we gonna wrap this up here?
Yeah, because it's getting late, and I got David Silverman coming on here in a few hours, I think.
Which one? There are 2 David Silvermans.
Really? Who's the other one?
The other one is one of the directors of The Simpsons.
Oh yeah, not him. the ex-president of American Atheists is going to join us here tonight, I think.
Nice, awesome. Okay, so a little teaser for the next episode. Riley will cite his own video in the third person.
God, no. You're messing with me. Don't do this.
No, I am not.
That's equivalent to citing a C drive.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on page, actually, Steve, I can show this to you. On page 25, the first line. Quote, according to this observer from Hoylake, Wirral, UK, and then he cites a link to his own fucking video.
Yeah.
This is, in my opinion, the highlight of the entire thing.
Okay, I have worked with scholars who do cite themselves.
Which is perfectly...
Yeah, you're allowed to do that if you have something that's citable.
You have to say that you cite yourself. The way he's doing it sounds like he's citing a third person that is independently verifying his claims, which is not the case.
Yeah, you're allowed to cite your own papers and shit. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I've got a whole shelf full of scholars who have written entire books, and so they cite themselves, and you have to go to those books.
Yeah.
They cannot put enough information in a single footnote to satisfy the information needed.
And if you quote yourself,
do it correctly.
Yeah, if you quote yourself, you're supposed to treat it. You're supposed to treat it as any other quote. You have to. You can actually plagiarize yourself, believe it or not, in academic standings. And that's weird, but it is the way they do it in academia is you can theoretically plagiarize yourself if you don't properly cite yourself if you're going to quote yourself. Now, will they probably do much about that? Probably not, but that it is considered a form of plagiarism. Unfortunately. Right, Dr. Griffith?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, guys, this was already too much for me to take. We're on page 8, so I can't wait for the part 2, which will probably be next week or something.
Yeah. We're on, this is the painful part. We are on page 8. We are only, what? 1/5 of the way through?
There 40? Yeah, there's 40 pages. So
no, there's 33 pages in total. But the last 5 or so are just full of pictures, believe it or not. So in total, it's maybe 25.
We're still around a quarter of the way then.
There are several pages of screenshots of his online searches.
Oh, God.
There's also a portrait of Carl Sagan.
Oh, yeah. Nice picture of Carl Sagan.
I hope the live chat enjoyed this. They seem to have 400 some odd people watching us take apart his thesis, which, by the way, other people have done before. I know you guys went over it with, I think, Scott, Sean Hufford did something on it.
Dead Kennedy in Space has done an excellent takedown of it.
I like him.
I like him a lot, too.
He's in the
There's
shills.
been several really good takedowns. They haven't actually read from it. So this is kind of something I was looking forward to. I don't know if anyone else appreciates it, but this is just so painful.
Actually, nobody's probably looking forward to this. It's just the morbid curiosity that humans have, like looking at the victims of a car accident. This is similar.
Yeah, and it shows the mindset of these people, of these flat earthers, right? I mean, I don't want to mock people just because they're not good at grammar or make spelling errors, because I'm one of those people. I admit that. But I'm not writing a master's level thesis, because if I did, I would definitely have people be proofreading this stuff. I have people that edit my stuff, and I have people that will read my stuff to try to correct any minor thing that people will put out, because I noticed there are a lot of grammar Nazis in the community that you make one mistake and they'll, instead of arguing the argument or giving a counter argument, they'll focus on that. And that's really kind of, this just says to me they're not really interested in the discussion, because we all make spelling errors. But this paper is more than just grammatical and spelling errors. This paper is a whole complete fuckery of what I would consider to be the system, if this is the type of material that somebody's going to actually submit as a legit master's level thesis. That's just ridiculous.
To me, if I was working on this man's committee, and he handed something like that in, I would, number one, not want my name associated with this. And when you write a dissertation or a master's thesis, your advisor's and committee's name will forever be on the signing page. So their quality of work is reflected in your quality of work. So number one, you don't want your name on something as bad as this. Number two, I take it as personally insulting that this guy did not care enough to proofread, to check, to find out how to write a thesis in the first place, and just scribble something down and hand it in. And he's insisting, because he has paid for his coursework, they have to take it.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right to be insulted by that, to be honest with you. Yeah. So is Geostreber has a right to be insulted by that.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I can send you guys my thesis if you want, but
I wouldn't understand it.
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
okay,
that's the point.
I can relate a little bit, real quick. Morton Nelson for 25 DKK. This was painful. Thank you. I think you're welcome. But I can kind of relate a little bit. I never had to write a thesis, but I have had to write things. And when you get all done with all your training for the nuclear power school and prototype, you have a 4-hour oral review board where you have to defend anything you've done, anything you've studied. You have to be able to regurgitate anything they ask you for. It's just like what you would do for a PhD, as far as you have a board and they ask you questions. Now, I'm not trying to equate the two. Somebody out there's going to say, look, Steve thinks he's on PhD level. No, I'm not saying on PhD level. I'm just saying that for 4 hours you are grilled by experts, actual nuclear engineers, people that have PhDs in nuclear engineering and other topics, and they can ask you anything about what you've learned over the last couple of years, and you have to defend it.
Yes,
and you can't just bullshit
process. In the PhD process, we call that the comprehensives. That you give your committee the list of at least minimum 100 books that you have used in your research and in what you've studied and what you are going to proclaim yourself as being an expert in. 100 books, and they can ask you anything from any of those books.
Yeah, somebody had pointed out surface warfare qualifications. Take surface warfare qualifications times 1,000. Yeah. That was my oral review board. I had to do surface warfare specialist as well, so I had to go through that review as well. That was easy. That was cakewalk. All I had to do was, I remember them asking me some questions about SM-1s, SM-2 missiles and how far they went, and harpoons, and 55 Bravo radar. It was just basically, here you go, regurgitation.
Because frankly, if you're playing around with nuclear fusion, I want you to know this stuff. Fission. Whatever.
Gotcha.
Whatever.
Hot things make it go fast. Okay.
Yeah, that's where the surface warfare was definitely rote memorization, but the nuclear training was not, because, again, as you point out, when you're operating a nuclear power plant that's 150 megawatt at a certain temperature and certain pressure, you have to understand what that means as far as not to have things like brittle fracture, cold water accident. You have to understand what's going on in the plant. If you turn this valve, how everything is affected by it. You want to make sure that you're operating within normal ranges. So if I say, hey, I'm at this lineup, I have this pressure, this temperature. If I do this, what's going to happen? Oh, I'm going to get water coming out of my steam because it's going to lower the pressure. That's going to cause impingement on the turbines. And what happens when you have turbines spinning at tens of thousands revolutions per second and you have water droplets hitting those blades? Let me tell you, it's not a good thing.
No.
So, yeah, there's a distinct difference between comprehensively understanding material and be able to defend it like a PhD thesis would, as opposed to just like rote memorization where you're just kind of regurgitating. I think Anthony thinks that a lot of this is people just regurgitating stuff. No, it's comprehensive understanding, which clearly he does not have of any subject.
Yes, he in general, he just does not understand the amount of work it actually takes to become a scientist.
Yeah, or any kind of achievement. I don't think he understands. I don't think he understands what it's like to even go to. How did he get a degree in the first place? I don't understand.
I don't know. The thing is, some works like this thesis are so bad that I think they should actually qualify somebody to have the earlier school graduations or whatever taken
evaluated. Yeah, no.
Yes,
I agree with you.
So in this case, this is so stupid that Riley probably would have to give away his driving license.
So bad he has to give up all his ID. Well, yeah, I mean, he probably got his bachelor's. The way I look at it, again, bachelor's degree just kind of shows that you have a fundamental understanding of the topics. I have equivalency of a bachelor's degree as far as I have enough credits for one. So I would say fundamental understanding. Master's degree shows a proficiency of it, that you actually have mastered it. PhD is what you add to the body of the work, I think. I think a PhD level, you're not just competent enough to understand it and to teach it, but you're competent enough to add to the body of the works itself. And that's a hell of an accomplishment. And I think he just kind of demeans anybody who's ever actually had done a thesis to no end. We're going to wrap this up. Kawasa 5000. Juan, similar process in grade school as well. Even the, quote, mocking grilling of your fellow students are brutal. Yeah. An office, I can't pronounce this name. I can't see it. Alfimo, $5.
Offlamio.
Oh, Offlamio.
Offlamio.
Steve, what kind of training do I need if I'm wanting to work in the power industry? I'm currently trained in information science. If you want to learn in the power industry, you're going to have to learn, again, like basic physics as far as terminology. What is energy? What is power? What is a joule? What is a watt? What is, the basic science stuff. And you're going to be learning things like the power distribution, how, in the United States, a lot of our power on our grid actually gets farmed out to other places. A lot of ours that are generated here locally goes to Arizona and Nevada, right? So if you want to get in the power industry, you have to understand how power distribution, power grids work. Matter of fact, the very first question on my 4-hour review was on power. It was actually literally draw the entire electrical distribution system, including all circuit breakers, on an S1C combustion engineering plant. That took about an hour. Just my 4 hours just doing that particular question, because it took full blackboards. I had to draw this bus, this circuit breaker, this SSMG, this battery. It was pretty brutal. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to do that now.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
But anyways, thank you two for taking your time to actually look over this monstrosity. I don't really know what else to call it, but we're definitely gonna be doing a part 2. So your efforts are not to waste, or for not.
Okay.
They'll be utilized.
I'm pretty certain we will need at least 4 parts for this.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think a quarter at a time is more than we can bear. I don't want to overtax the audience as well. I like my audience,
just wait
I really
a
don't
month or so and then re-expose them to this.
I don't want to harm them, and I don't want to cause permanent damage to my audience. I like to keep them around if I can. But Geostreber, promote your shit, and what you got coming up for us? Anything?
I will probably actually in 2 weeks, visit a conference of climate change deniers, because I want to check those idiots out.
Yeah, that's always a fun topic.
And also on Sunday, I'll have a hangout with a bunch of colleagues of mine. Microblog will probably be there. Sean Hufford, maybe, I don't know. Sly, you're also invited, by the way, Steve. About our favorite or non-favorite, depending on how you look at it, chemistry bullshitters, Peter and Pete, who think that water is not made out of oxygen and hydrogen, which is painful.
What, pray tell, do they think is comprised of, like, magic?
Water. They think water itself.
Water is comprised of water.
Yes, that's what they say.
So just because we can disassociate it and actually show that it's comprised of oxygen and hydrogen through electrolysis and put it back together again to form water through reactions.
Yeah, basically they're saying that's not working. Because there's
I've done that experiment
that cannot be excluded. I know, they're fucking stupid.
In 5th grade we do that.
It's not only that, it's the entire thing. They don't understand how nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy works, which also depends on it in some cases. IR, infrared spectroscopy, shows that water is made out of oxygen and hydrogen and a few others. They're just stupid in every way.
We know the bonding angle of water. What is it, 140 degrees? Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. 105.7, I think.
105 what's the bonding angle? Yeah, there's a couple of angles involved. There's a bonding angle. One was 105. And one's 140 something, and I don't remember which angle was what. But anyways, we could determine all this stuff because of molecules.
Yes, in this case, actually, we can just analyze ice crystals with X-ray scattering experiments. This is possible.
Yeah, so
that's actually one of the ways how we determined it.
So it's 105 for the bonding angle of Waddle, but the ideal bond angle is 109.5 in Vesper theory for a hydrogen carbon hydrogen bonds. So that's going to be 109.5. See, interesting. Vesper theory is fun. We should do that one day, Gio.
Yes, for carbon, because it would be the center basically of What's the English word?
What is it?
Like a pyramid, a three-sided pyramid.
Oh yeah,
Tetrahedron.
Methane would be a tetrahedron.
Yes, for example.
Tetrahedral set.
Yes, and the free electron pairs in water take up more space angularly, which is why the angle in water is smaller.
Yeah, because we can go over like a sigma bond versus a pi bond, how electrons actually, why you have ionic bonding versus covalent bonding. I think that'd be fun kind of stuff to have a little.
Oh, that would be fun. Yes.
Yeah, maybe we can do that. Get back to some basic stuff because we all have this stuff before, but we forget it. I mean, it's just So, anyways.
Yeah, basic science hangout would be quite nice.
Yeah, I enjoy that. We'll arrange something like that. We'll just do something on basic electron orbital mechanics. Maybe simple hybridization. If you remember anything about sp3.
Yeah, of course.
Hybrids. Do you remember that shit?
Yes, of course.
I mean, I know you're a chemist and all, but most people just learn that stuff.
First semester stuff, you have to know how the orbitals actually interact. You do realize I'm an inorganic chemist, right? And the d orbitals.
I know, but people tend to just forget about that kind of trivial stuff.
The d orbitals inside transition metals are, first of all, they are a bitch, and second of all, they are very important to what I'm actually doing.
Awesome. Well, I think the audience would love something like that if we can have something on Vesper. But anyways, Dr. Griffith, what do you got coming up for Unsettled History?
October 30th, Jerry and I are going to be on the Great Debate Community, and we're going to be talking about the novel Frankenstein. We're going to be talking about the very different ways that you can look at this novel. It's 200 years old, and it is still sparking all sorts of debate. Mary Shelley. Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. It is an awesome book. We encourage, if people have read it or they're going to read it over the weekend or whatever, please join us, because we'd like to hear from people out in the audience, because it is going to be a show about all the different ways you can talk about Frankenstein.
That's going to be awesome. By the way, I really like the stuff that's going on the Great Debate Community channel. I know I'm not doing much with it, unfortunately. I've got this channel to have to worry about, and I got trying to get the non sequitur channel back still. The judge has it in front of him. I don't know why he hasn't signed it yet. The lawyer says hang tight. Clerk says hang tight. Should be any time. But yeah, I like like what John's doing over on the GDC channel. Yes, I do own that channel. It's not a lucrative channel, so anybody who thinks that GDC is that these shows on there are making money, they're not. You can go look at the numbers. That channel in its lifetime history has made less than $700, and most of that within the last 4 or 5 months. So it really has not been. I didn't make that channel to be lucrative. I made that channel to help other channels promote their shit. So, and if we get some revenue out of it, that's great. But I love the fact that you're trying to promote your history unsettled, or something unsettled history, and that we have get you started on that. I mean, the fact that you guys wanted to do something like that with Jerry is just so proud of you guys.
Oh yeah. Oh no,
I can see. I see it in your smile, how much you love doing that kind of stuff,
This has been great. I would have never have gotten into all of this. It hadn't been for you, Steve. So we appreciate it.
Well, I still think, like I said, that out of all the things that came out of the Non Sequitur show, you, Digital Hammurabi, Fight the Flat Earth, and even people tangential that are around the communities, even Geostreber's communities and Sean Hufford and all these and AT2 Productions, all these people that really do the grunt work in trying to show people that the earth is not flat and just fighting against stupidity. My hat's off to them. And that's what I want to do in the Great Debate Community, is promote those types of channels. I know that John will pick one every episode to try to promote, and I want to continue that because I'm convinced that a rising tide lifts all ships, and I want other channels to be very successful. And we're going to promote on this more on this one too. Hopefully it's just, again, October, I said it was going to be a weird month, but anyways, thank you both.
Thank you.
I apologize again to my audience that they had to sit through this travesty, but if they want to come back for part 2, it'll be in a week or so. Good luck.
You need to mention, Steve, that you do not pay for any damaged monitors.
Yeah, I'm not responsible
because of.
I am not responsible for your brain damage. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.